This week is the one-year anniversary of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. They actually had the gall to celebrate this at the White House and claim that it's working. Bidenomics is working. Boy, I'd hate to see what it looks like around here if Bidenomics were failing. Representative Kevin Hern, Republican from Oklahoma's 1st District and also chairman of the very important Republican Study Committee, joins us now. Well, Congressman Hern, Bidenomics is working. What do you say?
Well, I think he misread. I think it should read bad economics. The guy is just, it's after the fact. Here's the thing. The Democrats bought into this Inflation Reduction Act because they knew it sounded really good. Nobody believed it then. Democrats really didn't believe it, but that's what they sold the American people because Build Back Better nobody believed that either.
Yeah.
The president admitted finally they wish he hadn't called it that, but the 1.2 trillion that he said then it was going to cost was really great for America and the American debt that we're seeing. However, you're also hearing today that everyone estimates now that it's going to cost somewhere 3 times that. And guess what? Headline to all Americans that the majority of that money is going to overseas companies and companies making more than $1 billion a year in revenues. It's not going up to stand up new companies.
Yeah, I want to get to that point in a second. We actually have some audio from John Podesta in the White House to back that up. But first, on this inflation reduction lie, I actually saw journalists yesterday tweeting out, well, when they signed this a year ago, inflation was 8.5%, and now it's only 3.6%, so inflation has gone down. Sir, clearly they did not pay attention in economics class. Can you explain about how the inflation index is a year-over-year number, and so it's actually still pretty bad around here? In fact, 8 last year plus another 3.5 this year. That puts us up to about 12% 2 years off.
It is amazing the voodoo math that goes on in Washington, D.C. to placate the voters. And it's really sad how the American voters are hoodwinked. But you're exactly right, Larry. We're some 12% above where we were in 21, and nothing in sight. We saw today mortgage rates hit the highest in over 20 years. It's going to have and is having impact on housing and people trying to buy new houses. The reality is, I saw a number the other day that said that very few people are seeing the mortgage hit because so few people now are buying homes that they're just staying in the homes they're in. So right. This is having a trickle-down effect that's going to be really negative for a long time.
Which is actually slowing down a housing market that was on fire for a while there. And by the way, the residual markets, if you've got a good housing market, that means you have a good mortgage refinance market, original mortgage market, and it's killed those as well. Congressman Hern, as you mentioned, President Biden has said that maybe we shouldn't have called it the Inflation Reduction Act. Here's John Podesta yesterday at the White House.
To stop these disasters from getting even worse, we have to cut the carbon pollution that's driving the climate crisis, and that's what the Inflation Reduction Act is all about.
The Inflation Reduction Act is really all about cutting carbon. I got to ask you, some of your Democrat colleagues, when they were on the bubble last year going into the midterms, would they have signed a bill that was cut the carbon in our atmosphere bill versus the Inflation Reduction Act?
Absolutely not. This was purely political naming of this. The thing is, Larry, there's really 3 things that control our national security that we deal with every single day. First one is our energy security, second is border security, and third is economic security. This president and these Democrats are failing miserably at all 3. The Republicans have passed H.R. 1, an energy protection, return us to a dominant position we had just 36 months ago. The second is securing our southern border, and the third we're working on right now is to get our spending under control. And we did that with the debt limit deal. We've got to continue working on our budget and get these appropriations done. American people are tired of suffering.
And let's be clear, all of these so-called green energy initiatives that are subsidized and paid for by this bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, I saw a study, Congressman Hern, that said all of these devices and all of these solar panels and all of these batteries for electric cars, the one nation on this planet that benefits the most from all of those items that we're now paying for is China. China is the best beneficiary of the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, in addition to the Congo, where child labor is mining the cobalt needed for the batteries out there, 90%, 95% of the cobalt in the world comes from there. 90 to 95% is refined and processed in China. So we're going from an administration that is pushing us not only to be dependent on places like Russia and the Middle East and Venezuela, places that don't really care much for us, on our oil, our fossil fuels that are needed, to now we're also going to be dependent over the next generations on items that need to make up our batteries. And so this president does not care about the sovereignty of this nation, does not care about where we're getting our energy from. And all these countries have to do is say, we're not going to give it to you. And when they say that, how are you going to drive your car? How are you going to expand on your wind energy, your solar panels? Because you're going to be dependent on places like China that doesn't care that we ever have a leadership position ever in the future.
Congressman Hern, Congress is in recess right now, but that's not a vacation. You're back in your home districts, you're getting district business done, and most importantly, you're hearing from your constituents. You're hearing from the voters. I wonder, what have you heard there in the 1st District of Oklahoma regarding the Biden crimes that have been uncovered, the lies that have been uncovered, and most importantly, last Friday's cynical, transparent move by Merrick Garland to put David Weiss in as a special counsel? That's the the fox watching the hen house. David Weiss should be under investigation for his behavior in this entire process. What are you hearing?
Well, people are sick and tired of the two-tiered justice system that they know that the everyday American could never get to happen to them. I mean, it's just insane what's happened. You know, Ways and Means, we had the two IRS whistleblowers come forward, Shapley and Ziegler, and tell us their stories, both identified as Democrats. Ziegler identified, as somebody who was conservative, gay, that did not, this is not about politics. This is about, they're infuriated that they said, two-tiered system of justice. People they normally go through the process with and find, evidence on, they were stonewalled at every angle, from the judges, from, people they were trying to get search warrants from. So we're seeing this. We did this process on the Ways and Means, sent this to the Oversight Committee with Jamie Comer and the Judiciary with Jim Jordan. They're doing their work to methodically walking through. You and I were talking just a few minutes ago about, the alleged emails that are coming back from the Biden administration, the Biden when he was vice president.
Yeah.
And did he use an alias to write those? I mean, here's the thing. The Democrats are not disputing anything the IRS agents are saying. What we know now is some $17 million of unreported income, millions of dollars of unreported taxes, and they gave Hunter Biden a potential plea deal of $100,000. Insane. Glad the judge set it aside. Game on. We're going to continue to work forward. We're going to make the connections. And my guess is in the very near future, you're going to see an impeachment inquiry on the president of the United States of America.
Let's talk about those emails you just referenced, because we were talking about it, but it was right before we went on the air earlier today. Chairman Comer wants unredacted emails. He cited one in particular that references a 9 a.m. phone call with President Poroshenko, Ukrainian president, and that was an email sent to Robert L. Peters. Robert L. Peters is a pseudonym, a fake name that Joe Biden used on official emails. Congressman, do you have any understanding as to why a vice president would need to use a fake name on official emails? And incidentally, before you answer, several of these emails included his son Hunter Biden and his partner Devon Archer.
Well, clearly this vice president, then president now, knew that he was doing something that he didn't want anybody else to know, wanted to have deniability. And now through, my guess is through testimony and through whistleblowers and through other evidentiary discovery that this has been found. And, this is just part of a greater narrative that we're working on right now in our judiciary committees and our oversight committees, that is our constitutional responsibility to have oversight over the executive branch. And for everybody out there watching, it is so important that we not only impeach this president, but we convict this president. And the way you're going to do that is to walk methodically through the process with evidence and facts that show that Joe Biden had connection to Ukraine and to China and sold his soul for the sake of money to discredit the relationships that we have in this country as a leader in a free world, committed treason. The list is going to go on, but this is at the highest level of corruption that we probably have not seen in a generation or maybe ever in the 247 years of our existence.
The standard for impeachment, of course, in the Constitution is treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. Looks like he's hit a triple here, the trifecta. Congressman Hern will leave it there. By the way, this Robert Peters guy, it could be Joe Biden's imaginary friend, right? I mean, we saw his interaction with the Easter Bunny that one time. We'll have to find out.
Who knows?
Thank you, Congressman. There's more to come. You're watching Salem News Channel.